Welcome to Shaky Sports Journeys. Thanks again for joining us. Two great guests today to have an interesting discussion, following on from a few podcasts that have already come out on institutional racism. I've brought together two fine cricketers, ex Warwickshire County Cricket Club players. I say hello to an old chum, all the way from Glasgow, living it up in Birmingham these days. Scotland and Warwickshire opening batsman, Andrew Umeed. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Good to have you, man. And as well as Andrew, I've got ex Warwickshire County Cricket Club fast bowling all-rounder who I was sharing on Twitter just last night, smoking one over square leg for six. I say hello to Recordo. Gordon, how are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks. Cass, how are you?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. We're doing a nice late evening recording, so my daughter's in bed. The house is nice and calm, so it's actually suited me quite well. Excuse me, lads. So my first question I wanted to ask both of you is: you both have lived the dream. Lots of people would give their right arm to do. You played professional cricket, played at an amazing stadium down at Edgbaston. I'll come to you first, Andrew. How many years were you contracted with Warwickshire, and just a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, so I was contracted for 4 years. There's sort of 3 of those years were kind of on the academy and transitioning, and then 3 of those years were really like full contracted on the staff. But yeah, so that was how many I was on the staff. Obviously, like when I got down there, it was like kid in a candy shop, like coming from Glasgow and being around cricket there. It's obviously I always had big dreams, but then to actually be in a test stadium, day in, day out, playing with guys you watched on TV growing up. So yeah, it was a really sort of eye-opening experience and really kind of pinched me sort of moments.
I know your dad would have been super proud. All those balls. I used to watch your dad taking you through the drills. It looked like a tough school you were in from early days. He never looked like he messed around there. It was get down to business.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, like you said, you probably remember some stuff I don't. Like you see me from being that young. So, but yeah, definitely tough school, which it has served me well in my cricketing career and life in general because when it comes down to it, I've never met anybody that's pushed me as hard as him. So, it's meant that I felt like I've had a slight advantage over other people at times because I had more of a robust upbringing, shall we say.
Definitely. Recordo, what about yourself? When did the county cricket start for you? And just same again, just tell me a little bit about the experience.
Yeah, so unlike most kids, I only started playing formalised cricket at 15. So I played my first organised game in the adult third team at Hansfield Cricket Club. I wasn't even meant to be playing, but I rode my bike down in the week, tore it up in the nets a little bit, and there's seen a little bit of promise. So one of the gents from there, a guy called Henley Gordon, no relation, seen me and said, you know what, they were short. He came to my house, picked me up, and took a fifer, and I got a 50. So that was my introduction to it. And then that same year, I got into the Warwickshire under 15 squad, played the under 16s, and then I had a side strain, didn't play much under 17 cricket. Then under 19s, I didn't get picked at all. So I just went back into league cricket at that time when I had left Handsworth and went to Moseley Cricket Club. So then I just fought my way. I played Moseley's thirds, seconds, and then eventually a few of the guys went on, and I ended up playing in the first team, tore it up there, did well, and then got my second team opportunity and then just did well in second team cricket and then got a contract at the age of 19. So that was my journey into the professional ranks. But similar to Andy, it was just like, it was at moments, it was surreal. Not, I think having that under 10s cricket, that county age group cricket, and that 4-year period, it just all happened a little bit so fast for myself. To then just being in a change room with people that you watch and admired, it was a little bit surreal at times. So, but then you realize that you're there to do a job, so I had to quickly get my head around the environment, the head around the professional game, and then and I think I was there from 2012 to 2016, but I played a lot in 2011 in the seconds.
15, man, that's so, like, I probably started playing cricket when I was like 6 or 7, properly went to a local cricket club. So 15 is really late to start. So did you just pick it up instantly? You must have done a little bit, just kind of around the family and stuff, or with friends.
So being born in Jamaica at the time,
I was
being a
thinking that.
90s, being a 90s baby, 91, and then at that time I think West Indies cricket was still a little bit in its prime. So I used to love batting more than I used to love bowling. I used to want it to be a Brian Lara, but so when I started to bowl, I always did it all. Being from a kid from the Caribbean, I did everything. I was free. I played with older kids. Age wasn't a thing back then. It was, you're good enough, you're old enough. So that's how I did it then. So when I came to the UK when I was 8, moved here with my father when I was 8 years old. I played, but nothing formal. So I only played in school, never played club. And then eventually my dad said, "You want to play?" He bought me a bike, and I just rode my bike down to the Handsworth Cricket Club because one of the coaches that came into the school, that's where he was from.
It's cool, man. It's cool. But yeah, like you say, your career just took off. 4 years and you're pretty much in the professional ranks. So that's a pretty cool story. Why are you not signed now, lads? I mean, I've been looking at your stats, and to me, they look more than healthy. Whoever wants to answer that question first can feel free, but I'm a bit confused as to why you're not signed.
I'll go first. I think for myself, I think there's a few things which I was naive with. And then I think it was a few things that I spoke out against. And I got the label of being a little bit of a bad egg. And then obviously, I think it was a bit transparent. So I had an issue at the very start of my career with my bowling action, but I worked tirelessly to get it to a place where it wasn't a major concern. Now, I've never been called for it. Never. No one's actually said, you know what, yeah, no ball from the square leg umpiring. And so I've always worked on it. Now, when it came on to performance, I got labeled as, you're not the greatest fielder. I had one of the best arms in the club. I have probably one of the best arms in county cricket, full stop. Now, because of that premature and that quick rise to first class cricket, because it's just pure athleticism from 15 to 19 to break in, that when I look back at it now, that's a feat in it by itself. So I didn't have that grounding, that foundation of cricketing skills. I was just using my raw ability. So then when you go into the professional world and everyone's like, your catching technique is off, you're not aware of this. And then I was just like, okay, since I'm not aware of it, I'll work a bit harder. I used to be probably batting more than a lot of the batters because I was like, I love cricket, I want to play. So people used to laugh at me the amount of times I would get out in the nets, but I wouldn't care because at the end of the day, I want to learn. I want to improve so I can help my team win games of cricket. So that was my attitude towards my development. Now, because of, I would say, my character and certain values which I hold dear to, I think I rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. So in rubbing a lot of people the wrong way, I just felt like that is what caused my career to be ended prematurely. So yes, I was naive. I did not get to know the right people. I didn't know the decision makers. And I would honestly speak transparently. You know the decision makers, you get a better opportunity. It's that simple. Right. And people look at me and be like, "But why should that matter?" It does matter because you have to know the business which you're in. as much as we look at it as cricketers and we think, you know what, I'm just here to play cricket. You are not there just to play cricket. You are a product of a company. The better the product sells itself, is the better the company does, and the more value the company sees in the product. It's that simple. So I would say I didn't sell myself to the right people enough. You know, I'm not a saint. There's a lot of things coming into that environment which I wasn't aware of, like such things as what is on time. You know, on time isn't being there at 10 o'clock. On time is being there at probably say it's training starts at 10, you got to be there from probably about quarter to 10, maybe even 9 o'clock, and maybe even earlier than that, quarter to 9. You know, so it's those type of things that which I had to learn pretty quickly, and then I started to settle in a little bit more. You know, so I would say it's that. Yeah. So for me, it's that I was naive. I didn't know the right people, and then I would say it was political biasness.
Listen, I can relate to you. I don't know, you've probably heard me speak about my situation many years ago when I was 25, and I can really relate to you, because I was one of those people that if I seen something and I had an opinion, I would say it again. If I had those values, I would call it out. And when you called it out, never played again off the back of it. Often questioned myself, doubted myself. Why did I? Should I not have done it? Should I have done it? But you just think about, you say unfair biasness there. There's other players who have also spoke out in the media here up in Scotland, and they went on to have quite good careers. So it does make me itch my head a little bit. And as much as you were maybe a little bit naive, I do think that's the job of the institution that you're in, and the organisation that you're in, to kind of manage that and make sure you come through those challenges, i.e. timekeeping. A lot of people have those issues. I'm sure there was ways to work with you on it, and I'm sure by the end you were probably better at it than you were when you first started, and you were probably there early.
Yeah, in 2014, that was my worst year of timekeeping. Before that, I wasn't late, but there was a lot going on in my private life which I wasn't aware of, that it was taking a toll on what was going on just my organization of my cricket. It never impacted my play, but it was just the organization of my cricket. I think one of my greatest assets is once I cross the line, everything else stops. That's one of my greatest things, that cricket is it's the thing I enjoy doing. And once I'm playing, I don't see no one and I don't hear nobody. It's just what's going on in the game. So yes, 2014 was my worst year. I got a final warning because I turned up late, I think about 5 times that year. Right. And the last straw was turning up late for the Lord's finals. It wasn't like I was late. Yeah, it was a major thing. So I kind of took that written warning with a like, no one needed to kick me, because if I had 20 legs, I probably would have kicked myself, because I at that point I was doing okay in terms of playing up until that point. But the traveling that week that we did, I just think I was just so tired. I went to bed before everyone else. I didn't drink, I didn't smoke. I just went to bed and I was just absolutely I think I was finished. So by the time I woke up, everyone else was at the ground. So I was just late. You know how it is, you got to get there, do your pre-prep before the team prep. So I was just late for my own prep, but I did the team warm-ups, everything was fine. And so I just took it because I understood, you know what, that is on me. And then the following year, not once. So
yeah, so you learn.
Yeah, so I learned pretty quickly, and I moved forward from there. So yeah.
So I come to you, Andrew. Same question. Yeah. I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, why have you been released?
Yeah, well, I mean, the conversation I had when I was released was more around, it was more the circumstances of the club. You know, we had 27 players or something silly on the staff at that point, and just signed 2 new players, both opening batters, both with more experience than me, but still young players. So again, I think naivety plays into it again, is in hindsight, exactly what Ricardo just said there is, at the end of the day, no matter how good your relationships are with people there, how much of you feel like it's your home club, and how close you feel with the club. At the end of the day, you're a product, like it's an entertainment business. And if you're not, going to be entertaining anybody anytime soon, then you don't really have a place there. So yeah, I think for me, it was more circumstances. And in hindsight, I should have gone on loan that year. As soon as players were signed in, I should have gone straight away on loan, because there were other players, who've well, I know in the past who have leveraged that, and got what they wanted straight away by even just mentioning they want to go on loan. They've had a deal put in front of them straight away. So it's just, and that's not nothing against them. It's just knowing the game, Yeah, and then I went to Australia that winter. So I had couple of trial games. I had 2 trial games. I had one for Sussex and I had one for Derby. I didn't get any in the Sussex game. The Derby game, I got 100 in both innings. And then, it was the end of the season. So he said, we don't have money to sign you now. Like, come back next year, So I went to Australia and then, yeah, just found it really tough in Australia. Like everything that had happened over the summer and just, that kind of intensity of wanting something so much and things, not really going the way I had planned or I'd seen them going, and just not really knowing what I was going to do, just the whole uncertainty. Then it just like puts pressure on cricket, it just puts pressure on just your general life. And I just kind of was like, I don't really want anything to do with cricket. That was kind of the conclusion I came to, just sort of escapism. So then I decided to travel for a bit, didn't play the following summer, to my own detriment, because Derby were keen. And then, yeah, just traveled, went back to Australia again the following year and found, a bit more of love for cricket again. And then came back during COVID and everything. And then kind of realized, like it was very difficult to just completely drop something like that, which had been my whole life. Like it wasn't like a significant part of my life. It was like pretty much all I did, as a kid and as a teenager, didn't really focus that much in school, just did what I needed to do to get by, keep my parents relatively happy. Didn't really play other sports, played a bit of rugby when I was younger, but yeah, was social, but not really, so it was literally everything. So yeah, realized I wanted to play again. So played last year during COVID for that kind of short season we had. And then again this summer tried to get some trials, but a few counties were interested, a few things organized, some games cancelled, and some other opportunities just kind of fell through. And people saying, we got a backlog of players, or my age and stuff, which I've always found quite a bizarre thing. I guess if it's down to money, then that makes sense, because the ECB will subsidize academy players who have been signed from the staff. They will subsidize their pay, which makes sense to incentivize counties to sign academy players, to produce players. But then you kind of get left in this kind of bracket where it's like you have some experience, probably not enough for a 25-year-old, but at the same time, it feels like it's like objective. Oh, in my opinion, I'm the best at cricket I've ever been in my life. So it's like, it's just bizarre to be like getting, a lot of opportunity when you're 19. And looking back now, I didn't know anything, compared to now, where it's like, I feel like I've got cricket sussed a bit more, my cricket anyway, sussed, to then, not have opportunity. But, it is what it is. It's the way it goes, I guess. Yeah.
Well, listen, if anybody's watching this, any county coaches, then we've got 2 young men here who are still very, very capable, and you should be strongly considering them. I don't know what Derby called you for a trial game. You scored 200s and you don't. How much better can a trial game go? I would have been having some words. But you're a very well managed young man, Andrew. I reckon I would have kicked off what do you mean you're not signing me? I've just banged 200s for God's sake. Lads, interesting to hear about your kind of journeys into cricket, and your highs and your lows, because at the top level, as we know, there's some great moments, but there's some very low moments as well. And you sometimes struggle mentally with those challenges. It sounds like both of you are probably going to be coming out even stronger. And probably, like you say, Andrew, you're a mature cricketer now. You're probably at your peak. So I really hope something good comes both your ways. I still think you've got a lot to offer the county game. Main discussion today I want to talk to you about is there's obviously been a lot of goings on with in relation to institutional racism becoming a really pivotal subject. Obviously with the Azim Rafiq scandal with Yorkshire, which has then travelled into the ECB, and we've heard from a lot more players as well, Recordo being one of them. And then it's obviously made its way over to Scotland as well, where we're hopefully soon to have an independent investigation. First question to you, Recordo. Tell me about your first experience of facing racism. Doesn't even need to be anything linked to cricket, just in general.
My first thing would be where I'm from, in Jamaica. There is a massive thing on skin complexion. And it leads to people actually wanting to alter the complexion of their skin by using bleaching agents, skin toning agents, to make themselves appear more fairer in complexion. So from darker to browner, to then from browner to fairer, because the perception is that is more socially acceptable.
It's just like Michael Jackson then, really, isn't it? It's pretty much
Yep. So the labeling and the skin and that color apartheid thing, I grew up around it from the Caribbean, whether that stems from the enslavement of Africans or the enslaved Africans and that colonialistic past of the Caribbean, which I believe it comes from, because otherwise that color apartheid thing is not there. We see again in other nations around the world where they have had colonization. Now that is the first port of call, which I've seen it, and then the first time I experienced racism was here. We were in England. So experienced colorism, which is a form of inbred racism, because you hate on each other because of your complexion of skin. Now that's that's traumatic in itself. Now then I studied drama at sixth form, right? So we went to watch a play. I can't remember what it was, but it was a school trip. Our drama teacher then took us on this trip. We sat on the train, and there was a group of adults, right? Obviously had a bit of a night out, and there's a group of us, and a kid had a high top, right? You know how young African boys trim the sides, and like Kid and Play, old school Kid and Play. If you from the 80s, you know how it goes.
Boys in the Hood and all that.
Yeah, Boys in the Hood and all that. That high top, right? And the reference he made to the young man was, "Oh, that looks like a little bit of a good little washing pad, in it. That looks like a good bit of steel wool." And I went, "What did you say?" Because I was one of the elder ones in the group. And I goes, "What did you say?" And the teacher looked at me and says, "Don't you dare." And then she flipped on the guy. So now that for me is like, that's racism. That in itself is racism. Now, racism to many people, they base it upon skin complexion, where I don't think it's skin complexion. Skin complexion is colorism. Have racism, you hate me because of what I look like, not the complexion of my skin. You are geared up to hate me for what you see. It's not my skin color. People are getting this thing twisted about skin color. It's not about skin color, because we know people from Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh have the same skin complexion of many of people from Nigeria, Ghana, Ethiopia, Egypt. You know, we can go through the East and name all these countries which people have the same skin complexion. However, they have different physical features that matches those complexions. So we now have this thing where you got black people, white people, brown people. Who are the brown people? You know, what is the color brown? So you see, in trying to be social justice warriors, we're causing even more segregation. So everybody is fighting for some right, not the right, some right. I'm fighting for my rights. I don't care about your fight. All I care is for my fight. And my fight is, because I'm Asian, it's all about what social injustices do brown people face. We're facing this as brown people. Let's not forget about the black people. Black people, you fight your own fight. Brown people, we fight our own fight. And in the middle, mixed race people, whatever color that you want to be, you fight that fight. Yellow people, you know, you hear whether you're black, white, Chinese, so or Asian. What? So what is a Chinese person? What race of people do they belong to? So we have to be quite clear in what we define is racism. Do you hate me because of the complexion of my skin? Or do you hate me because of what I look like? And that to me is what racism. And that's when I then started to become so, hold on. So you're hating this guy. You come on this train, you see everyone else sat down, a group of us kids sit there, and you decide to pick on this kid's hair. Why is his hair a bother to you? It's because it's a physical makeup of him being an African.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to put it, and I see where you're coming from. Being mixed race, half Pakistani, half Scottish myself, I found myself in some of those situations that I'd often get somebody saying to me, "What actually are you?" Like questions like that, and I would just say Scottish Pakistani. And they're just like,
But those two are nationalities, though.
I know.
So why aren't you just a mixed race guy? Why am I? This is what I said to Sky, which was not taken out in my interview. I said the confusion when you say so on the perception of it. If you didn't say that you're a mixed race, the physical characteristics of yourself which stand out more are Asian.
Yep.
Right. So if you want to identify as Asian, then you identify as Asian. Now, that's based upon if your parents have socialized you to understand it that way. Now, if they haven't, and you're socialized to accept that you're mixed race, then I think society should accept that there are mixed race people. Because if I say, like what the labels that they say, a mixed race kid who has a European parent and an African parent, they call them black. But that child grows up thinking black is color, and they think that black is not physical characteristics. So as soon as you have a hint of something that makes your features change, you are black or you're Asian. That's what they're questioning. That hint of something that makes you look non-European. And I think this is where, if we strip away the white label, you are not a white person. Because wherever you go, because you are white, that comes with a privilege. No, you're not white, you're European. And you're a national of that country like anyone else. You don't belong there because that's not your native land. And these are the type of things I used to say in the changing room. Right? You're not native to the country. It's not yours. You're an immigrant and a migrant like anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the type of things where it hits home because it removes that sense of privilege and entitlement for the Europeans who believe that the countries which they've colonized and settled in belongs to them.
Interesting. Andrew grew up in Glasgow. ever experienced racism directed at you, or have you seen racism towards other people?
The first time I can remember, I was having to think about this, and the first time like I personally experienced something was probably in school. But again, like I guess I had a pretty different upbringing. You know, I grew up around, you know, mainly kind of like white or European middle class kids, you know, who were by and large, you know, very lovely. So just sort of that one incident with one kid, and I mean, to be fair, we weren't on the best of terms anyway, and I wasn't an angel by any stretch of imagination. But no, I didn't really experience much growing up. I saw my dad experience quite a bit, you know, and as a kid, obviously being around cricket clubs from a young age, I would just go with him on a Saturday and trainings in the evenings most nights, and he would sort of like keep me away from it. You know, you wouldn't really understand, but like you'd hear the conversations within, you know, the sort of Asian group, you know, of players, and hear like, you know, that people had said, you know, like you're not allowed to speak in your own language, you know, when you're with each other, you know, like it's not polite to do, and you know, but not in a kind of taking your side way and being like, look, you know, where there's other people in the team and people feel uncomfortable, blah, 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 kind of, you know, you can't do that here. You know, this is our club, and you know, you're in this country. That was another one. You're in this country, so no, you can't speak in. You got to speak in English here. You know, when some of the guys, you know, his English wasn't great, you know, and having been somebody who's not very fluent in Urdu and Punjabi, I know how difficult it's been on the other side of that, going to Pakistan and trying to speak in that language all the time, you know, and even other parts of the world, you know, and trying to speak the local language. So yeah, so that was kind of ironically, you know, and fittingly, I probably saw more racism when I was younger in club cricket, and the general sort of attitude towards predominantly Asian cricketers, because there wasn't really any, you know, Caribbean cricketers or any other. It was Asian cricketers, you know, and that was kind of who I was around and associated with. So seeing them kind of have their sort of struggles, you know, and kind of eventually, well, I guess people say, oh, you know, they don't integrate and stuff. That was another thing. They don't integrate. They don't want to integrate. They don't want to, you know, the culture is different. They don't want to drink. You know, there's there's a difference in culture, but guys did want to integrate. You know, they wanted to play at the best clubs. They want, you know, but at times it just wasn't made possible. It was made like very uncomfortable for people. You know, luckily, you know, Shaky, you know, my dad, like he's somebody who like he doesn't take shit, you know, like for want of a better word, you know. So he would never, whether that was happening, you know, while I was a kid to me and I wasn't aware of it, you know, that could be very possible. And he was actually on the other side, you know, making sure I didn't see any of it, or that, you know, the back office was taken care of, so to speak. But yeah, that was kind of my experience. My experience of it was more seeing other club guys experience it, and obviously I was fortunate in the way that, you know, I was quite successful as a kid, you know, in most teams. So like most people in clubs, and obviously, you know, having kind of both cultures as well, and understanding the culture as well, a bit, having been born there and grown up there, fitting in quite easily. But then seeing, you know, Asian kids, or, you know, even adults, not be able to gel, and that kind of being quite, you know, like ostracized and, you know, squeezed out at times, which then causes that group to then resent, and to then, you know, deliberately at times make things more difficult, you know. But it's like cause and effect. Is like, well, who's, you know, where is this really started, if that makes sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. Seen it all the way through from childhood coming in. And you know, it's interesting the way you put that. you can't just put that all on the European people. You know, you can't just put all that on the Asian people. Like you mentioned, people from African kind of descent, we didn't really have that in Scotland. I think I've played with maybe one or two people from an African background in Scotland, whereas down south played with so many more. So it really was just the Asians and the Europeans, and there was just always that divide there. People like yourself and I obviously could fit in a little bit more because, like you say, we're bored. But it was upsetting at times to look back at some of the things that I've seen get said to Asian players, because if I was in their shoes, I probably would have walked away from it or not wanted to come to the ground. But perhaps the people that were saying that to them just weren't educated enough on how to approach that conversation. And I think that's what the key of all of this is that we get better in the long run. Moving in more to the county game, Recordo, what did you face? I mean, I've read some things in articles. You were obviously a guy that liked to stand his ground, and I respect you for that, because you should stand by your values. And if you hear something wrong, you should call it out. Often gets met with a backlash though, and you suffer at the back end of it. But when did it kind of start for you in the Warwickshire setup? What kind of things were said to you, and how did you feel at the time, and how did you deal with it?
Look, I'm gonna piggyback off the back of what Andy just said about, with cause to effect. Now, at the time when we were playing at Warwickshire, it was probably one of the most multicultural type of teams in terms of we had a few guys from the Asian players, and then obviously I had myself and Keith Barker as the two African guys in the team. Now, the dilemma that you have I had, is this: when you are a man of values, or there's certain things that you are aware of, not that you are better than, but you just become more aware of certain things. Now, I was aware of my place in society as an African man. Now, I understood that my job is, I'm here and I've got to leave it better, not only as a county, but for the next African kid that's going to step in my position. Now, before I got to Warwickshire, I was told it's racist, it's this, it's, they don't treat African people well, they're going to use and they're going to abuse you. Now, my dad heard all of that. Then my dad, when that was said outside of the home, my dad said to me, listen, don't you dare let me hear you say that your failure is based upon your race. Never, ever, ever. You go and you work 10 times as hard as anyone else. I don't care who's on the academy. I don't care who's on the EPP, and I don't care who's getting picked now. You go, you do your work. It's your career, your destiny. You make it happen. And when my dad looked at me and he said that, I said, okay, never will I make it be that. And he said, a man is just a man. If a man's a good man, you see him that way. If he's not a good man, doesn't matter what his race is. Now going into the changing room, I understood those things, right? Because my dad implemented that into my head. So now when you go there, right, and you have a lot of things in popular culture, right? And I don't follow popular culture because it's not what is promoted around me. It's not what my dad did. So my dad didn't use racist terms to greet his friends, So the N word, right? It's a very popular word now. People are starting to use it as a term of endearment. That word is in every song, most songs. Now you go into the gym, in the change room, that word is just being played. Now, can I criticize my teammates for playing those songs? No, I cannot. Especially when another brother is playing those songs and singing the words and encouraging other people to sing the words along. Now, I can't say, turn that off, stop what you're doing. You're a senior player. You must know as a man what you stand for. Now, I knew what I stood for, and I'm saying I'm not that person. That's not happening with me. So straight away, it's like, but why do you behave like that? Now, I didn't drink, not because it's culture, not because it's religion. It's simply because I understood that I want a professional career, and alcohol is not something that I must have. And I didn't smoke. And I didn't have 3, 5 women, the typical, what is seen as a typical kid from from a Caribbean background. The typical African from a Caribbean background is seen that he's a party goer, he loves to drink, he's just a lad, he's do everything, you know, he's got no sense of self. So when I came in and I didn't do those things, then everyone's like, well, why are you so self-righteous? Why are you on this high horse? Why do you have this chip on your shoulder? Because I wouldn't do the things that they would want me to do. So the stereotype, so like I said before, I can't blatantly say it's racist because there was somebody, and in the environment and within our culture, popular culture, we allow it to happen. So just like what Andy said, there's two folds to every story. I can't hold society accountable for racist bigotry when my own people continue to perpetuate the same things. So those of us who decide to stand against it will just seem like, why are you being a weirdo?
You talk about the N word. I've often thought that, you know, that just keeps it going. I've always thought that. I just feel like that's always good. If that word stays, I mean, I've watched some high level. I think I was watching an interview with Jay-Z the other day, and he's a successful guy, you know, so wealthy, has been around the world, and he's just sitting there using the word in the interview
Freely, yeah,
freely.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
thinking, well, if I'm a kid, 10 years old, and this person is saying this, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me saying it? And then often you'll see the whole thing where if a white person says the word, they get that look like you shouldn't be saying that.
Anybody else says the word. So here's the thing now, right? I seen Jack Brooks, he said it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't know. He could just be saying it because it's popular, or he may understand and be like, look, I'm not laughing with you, I'm laughing at you. I'm going to use the words that you are trying to make it a term of endearment, and I'm going to use it and I'm just taking the mickey. Now, I'm going to, people might hate me for saying this, but why should Jack Brooks have to come out and apologize for saying the N word? When artists sign music labels and say it freely and play it in every song, why? Why should he say sorry? We don't know. It's popular. Why everyone's using it? So this is what I'm saying. We want society to change, right? You want people to stop saying things and stop and treat you a certain way. It doesn't start by telling the other person to fix themselves. You have to fix yourself internally first. Know where your values are. Like Malcolm X said it, a man who stands for nothing will fall for anything. If you have no moral compass within, how can you ask somebody to treat you a certain way? You have to impose that standard upon somebody else. Now, I got released at my end of my contract, like similar to Andy, right? I knew I was going to get released. I felt it at the end of 2015, right? Had a good year. I started to grow my locks, and I didn't want to trim my beard, and I didn't want to trim my hair. That's because I was going through the Rastafari thing, right? That cultural journey, spiritual journey, finding oneself. And when I started, people were like, "You're gonna cut your hair." They'll ask me today, tomorrow, "You're gonna cut your hair? You're gonna cut your hair?" So for a week, the same person would ask me the same question every day. And after a while, and I answered at the start. After a while, I'm like, mate, you asked me that yesterday and the day before that, you know? So it just began. So why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I'm like, mate, you decide to drink. I don't question your lifestyle. You want to smoke. I don't question your lifestyle. You want to party. I don't question your lifestyle. What you do outside of this environment, I don't question it. So why is it what I do is a problem to you? And you're not asking because you want to know me. You're asking because you want to go and bicker and chat behind my back. So when we talk about education, who are we educating and what we trying to educate? What we trying to put into these people? Because I don't believe they lack education. They are just ignorant to the bone. The people who we play cricket with, they're ignorant. And that's me. I'm being absolutely honest. See, if I can adapt, why can't you adapt? So is it your world and I'm just existing in it? Is that what it is? Your
Yeah.
world, I want to play cricket, so I must yield to your demand and then lose whoever I am, my culture, my morals, my beliefs. And then when I come back to my family and my people, I can't assimilate again. My family don't look at me. I've lost all my dignity.
No, you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to do that at all. No human being should have to do that. We should be accepted for who we are. And I think that's what's being highlighted right now so very much, that, we're not like that as a society. We really aren't. We don't seem to embrace other people's differences, which, I mean, I've loved going around the world. You guys have both done it as well, and meeting different people and seeing how they go about things. I think I find it really interesting. But in this cricket institution, I don't think it's something that's being embraced. I'm talking about from playing for Scotland and being over here, but as well as when I was down south as well. I don't feel it's embraced. I was actually speaking to a couple of female Scottish cricketers just recently. The three of them played in the 100 competition. So it was two of the sisters called the Bryce sisters, and there's a girl called Abtaha Maqsood. She was the first girl to wear the hijab in the professional game. And honestly, when I was talking to them, they were telling me about how they've learned about her culture. They understand she does her 5 prayers. They know what she eats, and they knew all of these things. And they were like, "Oh, it was really cool to find out about it and embrace it." But I didn't feel like that coming through. In a man's in the gents changing rooms. I never felt people. If anything, there was more comments like, "Are you going to blow something up today? Or you're going to do this, or you're going to do that?" I got a bit of that when I was down south in particular, and that's just, again, just horrible looking back at it and thinking, and I would stand my ground, but like you're saying, when you stand your ground, you suffer off the back of that, because then the institution, the organization sees you as, he's a bit of a troublemaker.
Yeah, it's almost, I find it weird that they make jokes, like say things like that in a joking, like trying to make it seem like it's banter, but it's not banter, because you're purposely trying to hurt me by saying something like that.
Yeah.
You're making me accountable for a group of people who I have nothing to do with. And when you say things like, "Oh, that's what black people do," why are you guys like that? Oh, that's black people clothing.
Yeah,
Why
that's
do you
so
guys
racist.
dress? Yeah,
That's
like
so
why do you guys dress that way? I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Like what, man? Like what?
But
What
I'll
are
be
you
honest,
saying?
when I was 12, 13, I used to like to think I was a bit of a gangster rapper. So I used to like, all the baggies and everything
Yeah.
else. And, I used to love it. And I went to the under-19 World Cup, and I remember Darren Sammy, that was the first time I met him. Then I played with him at the MCC, and he used to say to me, "Shaky man, nah, you're not feeling it all." And I'd be like, "Sammy, what are you talking about, man? I've got this thing going." And he's like, "Nah, man, nah, it's not happening."
Just leave it alone. Yeah.
But he never turned around to me and said, "Don't be trying to dress like that," or anything. He was just more having a giggle, that I don't think you're pulling it off. But the thing was, I was open to embracing that. I liked it, and I think the Alex Hales thing. What's your thoughts on that, Andrew? You've not spoken for a while. The Alex Hales thing that's come out. He's obviously painted himself black, and he's gone to a party, and he's dressed himself as a gangster rapper. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that he was wanting to be racist?
I don't actually know anything about that. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. I'm not very plugged into the news and stuff. But I mean, it doesn't sound great, does it? Just from hearing what you've described, that doesn't sound great. To people's intentions, you don't know, but it's like, I don't know. There's always going to be people who are going to be trying to be provocative. There's like I guess that's comedians' jobs, isn't it? You know, to make those sorts of things. But you know, I guess there's just a sort of there's guidelines as I guess as a role model, really. You know, but what Ricardo said, I think, was interesting when he said, "Oh, so you think it's just your world and I'm existing in it?" And in my head, I was thinking, like, you know what? I think you've nailed it there. I think a lot of people do think like that. You know, whether they realize it or not, I think people do think like that at times. They kind of think, you know, this is our England or Scotland or whatever, and you're existing in it. So we're kind of, you know, this is our rule of law, and we just kind of do what we want. In the same way, when you go to Dubai, you know, you're not going to be staggering around the streets drunk, are you? Because, you know, they'll whip you off the street and stick you in a cell, you know, but, you know, and the girls will, you know, adhere to the like the kind of clothing sort of regulations they have over there and stuff. And, you know, British people are very happy to do that over there, you know, although there's another side to Dubai, but people are very happy and very respectful there because they're in somebody else's backyard, so to speak. And so I think it's a similar sort of thing here. They kind of feel like they can get away with it, I guess, especially when you're in numbers, you know, you kind of get away with it, you know. I guess sort of the general behavior at times, like, for example, I think the things Ricardo's alluded to is like, if you were in Jamaica and you were playing for a professional team in Jamaica, would you still be saying those things? You know what I mean? So it's not really whether or not we can argue and debate whether what you said is racist or whether we can prove it or not. Is like, well, if you've gone into an environment where you're playing with nine Caribbean cricketers, professional cricketers in the team, would you still have said that same thing? You know, and if you would have, you know, because you're asking about someone's locks, for example, and why they have them and how it works, and you can say honestly, yeah, I would have said that same thing, you know, then yeah. But I think a lot of the time it's like you wouldn't say that if there was nine Caribbean cricketers in this change room, you know. So yeah, sorry, to answer Alex Hale's question, I can't really, I don't really know. I don't really know the details of it. But if he's painted himself, it's just pretty. I mean, people can always make an argument and say, "Oh, no, I wasn't trying to do this and that." But is it really culturally sensitive? I guess that's the kind of, yeah, doesn't really seem it.
How do you feel about it, Ricardo?
The way I see it was, okay, you like Tupac. That's what his thing was. And if you know Alex Hales, he's a Jack the Lad. If there's a Jack the Lad, that's Alex Hales. Now, again, what Andy said, intentions, we don't know, right? And again, I'm going to put it back on African people. When it was done, the whole blackface thing that used to happen in the 60s, when the European comedians used to put on the black makeup and act as African people would do. So they had the dark face, dark makeup, and then the red lipstick that they used to put on and said, oh, this is how the African people behave. So whether or not it has that connotation behind it, if that's the way the public's seeing it, then he set himself up for that failure. Now, if he did it because, you know what, he wanted to assimilate and be like Tupac, then maybe you should have just put the red bandana on, put on a few gold chains, wear the saggy pants, fake tattoo the Tupac stuff, and then dress the rest of your mates like what was Tupac's crew called? I can't remember Tupac's crew, but
They were
yeah,
called, yeah, it'll come to my head. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
yeah. So yeah,
Death
Come on,
Row.
boys.
bro,
Come
yeah,
on.
yeah.
We should have known that, Ricardo and Andrew.
No,
I mean,
listen, I'm not
Glasgow,
messing-
Glasgow High boy.
I was
from
letting you
Glasgow
get it. I was
coming
letting you
out.
get it. I was waiting. I was like, come on, come
Death
on.
Row, yeah. So Tupac Shakur is Suge Knight, so he should have got one of his mates to make him be. He should have got one of his mates to dress like Suge Knight, and then he could have been Tupac. No, the thing is, it just goes to showing it, like what Andy says. I wouldn't dress up and do that. Like, I'm not doing that. It's not crossing my mind to do that sort of thing. So what makes Alex Hales think that that is culturally, socially appropriate? So this is where I'm going back to. If you strip away, if you go back to his socialization, what world is he living in to make him feel like that is acceptable? And that is where, if we say we want to educate and eradicate, that's where we got to. Let's get to the root cause of things. Where did you get that thought from? I don't think, in my head, I can never walk into a change room like, you're all right, mate. I won't think that that's fine. It's not okay. Because for me, that's not me treating and trying to socialize with someone. You see, like, if I want to talk well or speak well, I learn the language that the person speaks. I learn to communicate effectively with that person. I don't have to go above and beyond in terms of trying to mimic the accent or mimic the behaviors. I just have to understand how that person is and where they come from, and then be respectful in my approach. So the Alex Hales thing, whether it's racist or not, or whether he was trying to be racist or not, I wouldn't know. Right? Only Alex Hales will know that. But why did you think that that would have been okay? That's my question.
I reckon the environment that he was probably in with those group of mates that he was with, probably seen it as just banter. But banter, as we're working out very fast, that's not banter. That's crossing the line. My next question that I want to ask you is around selection, biased selection. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of examples that have been brought to my attention in the past week or so. So I've had a parent say to me that their child is from a minority background. I've seen the facts, I've seen the stats, I've seen the results of this person. They're very good in comparison to a lot of the other players that are playing. However, this child is not getting selected, and getting to the point where the child is distraught about it, feeling really bad. It went as far as the child being told that they're too foreign to play for Scotland. This is what's been brought to my attention. Then I look at my own national team experience of being in the team, and I speak to all the other South Asian players that have played in the squad with me as well, at different times. There's only 8 or 9 of us over a 20+ year period, and they all share the same feeling that always felt we had to do 2-3 times more than our white European counterparts. What's your feelings on that, lads? Come to you first, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard because I think it's hard, and I'm in a privileged position where I can see both sides of the discussion. I've been in conversations where guys from Asian backgrounds are doing things or behaving in ways that I can see are going to wind up people, are going to wind up European people that have a system, they have a hierarchy, they have a culture, and the Asian players are going against it, and so I can understand that, right? But at the same time, I can understand the Asian players because culturally, it's not the norm for them. For example, speaking in team meetings, right? A very small, simple thing, but Recordo can back me up on this and can confirm this. Also, you, Shaky, you know how much coaches love people who contribute in team meetings, and they fill out all the forms and they do all the goal setting and essentially do all the homework on time, and they're really engaging and they contribute a lot. That's the main thing. They contribute to the team. They contribute more than just the cricket. Heard that said a lot, right? And as much as I agree that you need to contribute in team meetings and stuff, but really and truly, it's runs and wickets at the end of the day. Like, let's be honest, it's runs and wickets. And, you know, as long as you're not like a really, really bad person and toxic, like what difference does it make? A lot of Asian guys, especially Asian backgrounds and even Caribbean, you know, because, well, Ricardo, he speaks up in team meeting stuff, but he's from a very like polite background as well. It's not normal from being from an Asian background to speak up when older people are speaking. You're not taught that. You're taught you're seen, but you're not heard. When older people are having a conversation, you know, you sit quietly and you observe, you know, and then from that creates this like nervousness and uncomfortable, you know, ness of like public speaking in general, but just generally, you know, speaking up and saying what you think, you know, because as well culturally, it's like if older people have told you to do something, you just go and do it, whether you like it or not, you know. So for me, I had that kind of, I understood from one perspective and understood from another perspective is they don't contribute in team meeting. You know, he doesn't care about his cricket. You know, he just thinks about himself and this and that. He's too quiet. You know, and it's like you're saying, what's that got to do with his runs and wickets? You know, but at the same time, I can see, you know, you want people who are going to contribute. You know, and it can be difficult at times, but it like the solution is like you have to understand the person and why they do it. It's not because they don't care or they don't want to contribute. It's there is a fundamental difference in culture and they have been taught something completely different to what you've been taught, which is open your mouth at every opportunity and, you know, say that you're going to do X, Y, Z and it sounds really good and write it all down on paper and it looks really good for everybody. And then everybody's like, you know, great player before they've even stepped on the pitch and done anything, you know.
Yeah, and people from a white private school, even South Asians from a private school, you know, education and whatnot, they're going to be a little bit more advanced naturally.
A lot more. I'd say a lot more. From my experience personally, and from seeing that, way more.
And a lot of people we would have grown up with, Andrew, are coming from households whose parents didn't really speak the best of English. You know, so they are delayed in getting those social skills. So here's some examples I'll put to you. So one of the big issues in the national team, in the Scotland national team, when I was involved in it, is there was. I'm not going to put my hand up here right now and say that I was a perfect Muslim. Far from it. I tried to be the best I can, but I'm far from perfect. But there was other boys in the team who were total devout Muslims. You know, like read their 5 prayers, don't miss all these kind of things were important to them. Now, when we would go out for a bite to eat, I would always be all right to just, if we couldn't have anything there, have some fish or eat some vegetarian. But the other guys in the team were very fussy about, they didn't like the vegetarian option or they didn't like the fish. So they would always encourage that, can we find somewhere halal to go? And it often caused a real tension. Like, well, we all want to go to that restaurant. You're just 1 or 2 people. So why should we go with what you want to go with? You should just be a bit easier. And some of the people that I played with, one person in particular who's just spoken in public about the situation in Majid Haq, quite a stubborn guy, a bit like probably what you were like, not stubborn, but would stand his ground and stand his values. And he would question it and he would put pressure on them. And the friction would build even more. And you could just sense it, like he was a problem child. He was seen as like, he's a bit. What's your thoughts on things like that, cultural differences, religious beliefs? From my point of view, they should all be embraced, whether you're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, whatever it may be.
Is that to me or is to us?
That's to you, my friend. I know it was a long-winded question. I hope you got it.
Now I'm going to bring it back to, let's take cricket out the picture. When like my career is from say 15 to say 26. Well, so yeah, 15 to 26. So in essence, 19 to 26, right? I played professionally from 19 to the age of 26. So after that, let's say I had the great fortune of playing until I'm about 35. So say I get a 16, 20-year career of cricket. After that, what am I? Who am I? what do I identify myself as, and what sort of things do I begin to say, this is what defines who I am? So if you want to say to yourself, right, these are my human things, this is what makes me the human person, cricket is a bonus. So I think if the people in that environment all assimilate and say, right, this is what our human values are. So if I humanly care about the other person, then it doesn't matter to me that if I eat halal meat, it doesn't matter, because I'm not pressed about it. Because if I eat everything else and the meat doesn't have to be sacrilegious meat, what does it matter? So if you're eating for taste and you're eating for likes, then what are you living by? You see what I mean? So it may seem like I'm going around it, but simply put, it's like this. Those people who are questioning Majid, yeah, on why do you have to eat halal meat? Okay, you know why? Because my faith means a lot to me. My faith helps me to define who I am humanly. Whether or not we believe it or not, or we don't have that faith, so we can't say to him, he is wrong. You don't have a faith. So let's say, for example, it was the other way around, right? And let's say it was a Roman Catholic guy saying, right, it's mass on Saturday, and because it's mass on Saturday, cricket should not be played. We will all have to change the league structure from Saturday to Sunday. That's what will have to happen. If he said mass is at 7 p.m., right, on a Friday, if mass and the prayer and whatever it is at 7 p.m. on a Thursday night, so at 7 p.m. on a Thursday night, coach, I have to leave the pitch. Or coach, 7 p.m. Thursday night, team meetings cannot be called at that time. What do you have to do? You must respect the human being for their human principles. Because after cricket, they will have that. Before cricket, they had that.
Well, it's,
So
it's interesting listening to Moeen Ali on the subject. He got criticised quite a bit for it when he basically came out and said, my prayer comes first, cricket comes second. And they tried to grill him and say, what would you do in a test match? And he would say, my teammates help me. It was really quite refreshing to hear it. They understand my beliefs. They know I need to pray. So I will be given that opportunity to read my prayers. I don't think that's happening across every single changing room in the UK, though. And that's something that I think, again, it's an educational piece. And you mentioned mass. I reckon if I turned around to most British South Asian boys and said, this guy's got mass tonight, they'd be like, what? I say that in a Glaswegian term, but they would be like, what's that? What's it got to do with it? They would probably be the same. So,
however, they wouldn't object.
No, they wouldn't object.
That is the difference in which I find. You see, if you have a culture, you appreciate somebody else's culture. You accept it, you see. So if I know that you had mass and you had prayers, because I know what it feels like to have prayers or Jummah, I can go, okay, you know what, safe, I understand. But if you don't have a culture and you just want anyone to just live like anything, I hear like, to go back to the thing of what do you hear? Asian boys, why don't you eat this? Why don't you eat that? Why do you live with your parents? Why ain't you moved out? Why are you gonna do? I'm like, mate, leave that person alone. So why do you kick your mom out? Why do you send your mom to an old person's home? Why do you send your dad to an old person's home? Why don't you live with your parents? Why, as soon as you make a little bit of money, you leave your parents and it's all about your wife, your kids, and your dog? Why is it like that? So if this person's values are my mom, my dad, my wife, my kids, my cousins, my brothers, my aunties, my uncles. Family values are important to them. Their family values aren't just Christmas, Thanksgiving, not even a birthday. So it's only Christmas, public holiday, whenever bank holidays, and a funeral. That's the only time that you see family.
It's total. That's a big point you've just made. Like, it's so true with Asian, most British South Asian boys. They're very family orientated. They spend a lot of time around their parents. But yeah, it was interesting. I did a podcast, thanks to Andrew, with Tom. And I'll come to you on this point, Andrew, where Tom says British South Asians mature later than people that are from a white public background, and even then from a private schooling background. They mature a lot quicker. It made sense because the British South Asian boys are more around that family until a certain age, never really stop, but they don't go out and mix as much with society. But you will have seen that a lot, probably with friends of yours growing up and stuff, that they didn't know how to be in a social situation.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think that the big thing is like moving out and living away from home. Like that's a big, like that, it changes you a lot in ways you don't realize if it's just the norm, you know. But like for me, when I came to Birmingham, I didn't know how to cook. Like, you know, cleaning was a myth to me. You know what I mean? Like these sorts of things. But you know, I was fortunate in that, you know, again, I had, you know, a good sort of upbringing in the way that I went to a good school, you know, had like that support and that sort of socialization and like, you know, that sort of cultural integration, if you will, you know, born and brought up here. So it for me, it was more, yeah, like you said, you know, it was difficult to see other guys, you know, struggling with those things and people just having objections that just didn't really, you know, it was just like it's just the way they are, you know, like Ricardo said, people they live at home, you know, so they have different values, you know, they prioritize different things, you know. Yeah, I mean, I guess I was just lucky in that way where like I learned pretty quickly, you know. I feel like I can be in any environment, and it's probably something to do with being from different backgrounds. I can go in even other countries, pick up languages quickly, and integrate into other cultures quickly, and also very, you know, dedicated in one track mind on my cricket. So I kind of gained favor, you know, in that way when I first came down. But with the other things, like the life things, like knowing how to pay bills and, you know, do that kinds of stuff, like that changes you a lot, you know. And if you do that at an earlier age, you gain independence. I know a lot of guys, which a lot of ejection I had as a kid and my dad had to overcome, was the relationship between like, I'm going to say father and son because that's, you know, like what I've experienced and the people I know experience, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. But father and son with like training, you know, and coaches trying to be like, oh, you need to separate them, you know, you need to become independent, you need to like get away from that, you know. And you know, at the time I was all for it because, you know, want to get away from my dad and off and do my own thing. But, you know, really on reflection, you know, is like nobody is going to care about you and your game as much as, you know, family, or if you've had a coach that's been with you the whole way. Nobody's going to give as much time. You know, you go to professional level and they've got a whole staff to deal with, you know, they've got a whole range of people to deal with. So there's time constraints, there's energy constraints, you know, people can't be there for hours on end throwing balls to you, you know, which blew my mind when I came. I just had this picture of like, when I come here, there'll just be people here to throw balls all the time, you know, and it wasn't like that. So it was a bit of an adjustment, you know, it was an adjustment. I wouldn't say, you know, I had the most difficult time of it, but definitely there were things like that were shock. And I could see other people like struggling with it, you know. and kind of falling behind in certain sections, even things like this diet, you know, the eating, like, you know, like just diet, you know, and then it comes to like the field, you can talk about the technical, like fielding, you know, Asians are not good at fielding. And it's like, well, you know, it's culturally as well. It's not emphasized. They're not brought up around it. It's not like they're a bad cricketer. They don't care about it. It's just like, you know, they've not had a coach being like, you need to be fit, you need to eat well, you need to da 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 da. Being young, you know, they've not had that. It's just like eat roti, you know, and then that's good for you, make you strong. You know, being slightly chubby, you know, you're a strong kid. You know, if you're too skinny as an Asian kid, then all the relatives are saying like, why are you so skinny? You know what I mean? Like he's not strong, you know, and then it reflects badly on the parents because then it's like you're not feeding him. There's that whole deep, like it's like goes so deep, and people, I think genuinely people don't understand that. Like there is such a, like even like coming to language, you know, like I even have arguments with my dad about, he's saying like, oh, if somebody's speaking Punjabi or somebody's speaking Urdu, then they're educated. And I'm like, well, Urdu was like brought together by the British, you know, it's like that whole thing. It's like back to what Recordo was saying about colorism, is like that whole thing, that hierarchy of education and like being well presented and all this stuff was like, it wasn't there before the British came to your country and told you you were doing things wrong and you're uncivilized, you know, and that is still like deep rooted to the point where a lot of times even the own people can't see it. You know, I know it's getting pretty deep into it, but it's like those whole things then contribute to it. And then if like Rick Crowder is saying, oh, people don't understand that, like how would you expect other people to appreciate that and really to be educated on that?
Yeah, so true. So true. It comes back to what Ricardo was saying about the N word. How the hell are you meant to expect people to not use that word if, like you said, Jack Brooks, how can you turn around and say to him, you need to say sorry when you only, I could turn this other laptop on sitting here right now and I could find 20 songs in the space of 5 minutes that would be using that word regularly. So if that's getting played and that's getting listened to, if I'm a young kid, 13, 14 years old, I'm going to think it's all right. And with what you're saying, Andrew, it's true that we have to be better, as you know, we have to try to see things from both ways. I think a lot of the things you've said have been interesting. It can't all be, you know, we can't end up in a situation here where this becomes like a quota system or something. That's not what we're looking for. We want equal, fair opportunities. But now getting to the crux of things, I'm going to talk to you about boardroom level and how my understanding is of institutional racism is now. If you have a boardroom and you have 20 people sitting around a table and 18 or 19 of them are white, from white backgrounds, and I don't like to always keep highlighting the difference in color, but I'm just saying it how it is from my experience, even in the working world, tends to look like that. Then you've got tokenism. You've got one brown face in there, you know, a person from a South Asian background or whatever it may be. How are you going to not be institutionally racist if you have no diversity at the top at boardroom level? How are these people going to understand the challenges of young people like from an African background, or like ourselves from a mixed background, or from a South Asian background? Am I right in saying you need to have more people in there to have more experience and more knowledge so you can share things with each other? And these type of challenges that we're talking about, i.e. it's British South Asians maturing later, you know, Recordo, you talk about it, late coming, timekeeping was maybe not something you were up to speed on before you went into the county system. These kind of things, if you have, so Recordo, me and you are sitting on a board in 5-10 years time, and this conversation comes up, we've got this boy at the moment and he's always late, and you know he's from this background or whatever, and maybe you could shed some light on that and say, yeah, we're quite chilled out in our ways. We don't like to go too, you know, we take, this is stereotype, that's kind of stereotyping, but my opinion always of people from an African background is they're chilled out, they're calm, they don't like to go too fast. So they don't want to get there at 10:15. They want to get there 10 to 10, 5 to 11 before they go out for the warm-up, and they want to be nice and chilled. But that might upset the team. People start getting, you see it, people start getting aggressive. I know that's a lot of information I've just put out there, but do you get what I'm getting at with the boardroom? How crucial is it to have a diverse board? That should have been my question, but I just went in a bit more detail.
No, I think you addressed quite a few good points there. And I'm going to start by saying this. You see the stereotypical thing that Africans from the Caribbean are, oh, they seem to be cool. I think that's a label. Get rid of it. Why? Because if you think, oh, you have to be cool, what does cool mean? What does cool look like? It is not. They don't try to be late on purpose. It is uneducated people. If you think about it, and I'm going to always, like what Andy just said, understand the root cause to the problem, and maybe then you can start to find a solution. Slavery ended about what, 400 and 450 years ago, right? And then after slavery ended, you were finding that Africans still didn't have the right to be educated. So you don't have the right to be educated. And then after not having the right to be educated, now you're struggling to understand the institutions that you have to come into. So you don't know what it means to be on time. You don't know how to prep for an interview. You don't know how to speak in that world. So then now 4 or 5 generations down the line, this is what you're seeing. They don't want to be cool. They don't want to be seen as that way. It is by default why they are that way. Because quick as you learn, you drop it like a bad habit. It's a bad habit. Now, to the boardroom thing, that's what my response would be. My response would be, if I am on the boardroom and I know I want promising students from the African community and the ethnic Caribbean ones to come forward, I would make sure that there is a initiative to educate them from the grassroots level at what makes. So by the time that student or that player gets to the county age group level, them and their parents know that on time is 1:45 or past. So if you're traveling somewhere that takes you an hour to get there, you need to leave your house with 2.5 hours early. That's what it means. And if you're not doing that, and I've taught you to do that, then guess what? By the time you get here, you ain't in, because you can't say that I didn't teach you. So I'm not going to wait till you make the mistake to teach you. And I think that's where I think boardroom level now, you know, this Rooney project thing that they have going on, right? I got asked it twice by, what do you think of it? And I say this, I know brothers, right, from Asian backgrounds and African backgrounds that couldn't care less about their people. All their ego cares about is them. I made it. Look at me. I can sit on the board of with the Europeans. I can talk the lingo. I can walk the walk. I got the nice house. I got the nice car. My kids are okay. They don't care. They couldn't care less. We have to be careful about pressing that issue, about getting our own on the board. Just like you know and I know that not many of our own will put their neck on the line and speak out. So when you talk about board members, you have to be strong internally. Because when you're there, you're there. You're there with the people that will break you. They will ruin your livelihood just like that. So you must be strong enough to know how to go against what you in that boardroom. You could be that one voice. So for you to get there, first and foremost, there has to be a route. So we can't just talk about how do we people on the boardroom. The boardroom has to firstly be a European board that wants change. So if that European board wants change, that European board is then going to say, you know what, let's self-police ourselves first. Let's make sure that we are a place where we don't need an Asian on the board to make us not be culturally ignorant. We don't need an African on the board to make us not be racially ignorant. We as a board, we are fair human beings. So us being fair human beings, you know what, John? That's not right. Derek, that's not right. Derek, if you don't fix your ways, we're gonna vote against you, and you're gonna have to come off this board. That's what it should be. So I don't believe that you have to have European. You don't have to have African people on a board or Asian people on a board, because the worst thing that you have is a brother or a sister on a board, and you think that he or she's gonna make a change, and they couldn't care less. Hence Barack Obama. Barack Obama's tenure as president of America was the worst thing for African people. They put so much expectation on one man, and they did not understand politics. Barack Obama, he is there not to serve African people. He was a symbol for every African person who had the strength that decided that, you know what, mediocre is not enough, I can do more. But Barack Obama is there to serve America, not African Americans. And that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah. Interesting. Love your straight talking style, by the way. I like it. I could imagine you sitting in a boardroom and me sitting across from you, and we could have some back and forth, but we would find the right middle ground in the end, because you need people that just, that's so powerful. Your own people don't want to help. I've seen it all through life. I've seen so many people that, get into a position of power and they forget who they are completely. And if anything, that's only going to make the problem even worse. That's not going to fix it. So we could talk all night about this, but let's get down to, what does a good institution look like for you guys in cricket moving forward? Mr. Umeed.
I think Recordo hit the nail on the head there when he said, like, that we have to want change, really. It can't be. I think we have to kind of sort of not scrap this, but just sort of hold clubs accountable when they do things, and companies do it too. It's just a business thing. When they just work on public relations, when they just do stuff that's like, there's Black Lives Matter is happening, we're going to sign a Caribbean player, or we're in Birmingham, we're going to have, an Asian overseas, because, it means that more Asian people will come and watch the games. It's like, well, you are just doing it then to tick boxes and stuff like that. Whether that's your intention or not, you kind of have to ask that question, or just, even, well, myself anyway, I kind of look at that a bit skeptically when you have people like Recordo. You have plenty of people in the Caribbean community who are trying to uplift that community, and the funding and support appears so small, when it's such a strong cricketing nation, the Caribbean, and then you have such a big Caribbean population here. The amount of kids, like Caribbean and Asian, the amount of kids, like, it's also like motivation as well. It has to be self-motivation, and the self-motivation has to, but it's coupled with the external motivation, because if a kid feels like they're not going to make it, and because of their race, right, or for whatever reason, right, somebody feels like they're not going to make it, they've already lost the battle. You guys both know this, is like, all three of us, we had encouragement from our parents, and we're told, you can do this no matter what. And so we then believed that, and so then that became, self-drive and self-motivation to, no matter what's thrown at me, we're going to go and do this. So I think, really getting back to the question, it has to be a big desire for change to happen, a big desire to explore untapped potential, because players are being produced, with all of these circumstances. Can you imagine if the funding is put in to it, which hopefully it will be now, to really develop these players and encourage them and show them, no, there is a path for you, and to show the parents as well that their bias might be wrong, that, if their kid's not, doctor, lawyer, or accountant, or, engineer, that they can be successful in cricket. They don't just need to go to school and get an education. That's not the only route, So, and you can't really blame a lot of parents for looking at things that way, because, at times it does seem difficult. So I think for me, I think we have to move away from this sort of top-down approach, like I think Jofra Archer is a good example, change the rules, completely for somebody who will come and benefit you immediately, which I'm not saying he shouldn't have changed the rules, and I'm not like, he definitely should have played for England. He, an absolute gun player and a great asset to English cricket. But, why is a Jofra Archer not being produced in this country when we have plenty of Caribbean talent? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just like, why? Okay, so we're going to do it when we can get something back immediately, and it's a good poster for us. Why are we not producing that player? Moen obviously had his experiences at Warwickshire, left and went to Worcester, and then became successful and went on to, be where he is now. So, but like you said, I'm sure those guys will say they would have had to done twice, 3 times as hard, which just doesn't make sense for me. It's just a waste, like, England's a very diverse place. It's bizarre that it's not reflected in it. I don't think it should be forced, as in we need this amount of people, this amount of people, this amount of people. I think that's the wrong way to go about it. And I don't think that helps. And I personally don't believe in like positive discrimination. I think that it's, it's a contradiction in and of itself, positive and discrimination in the same phrase. So I think people should be picked on merit, but there has to be, I think, funding and just an emphasis and a desire to want to produce these players, because they're there. They have the talent most of the time. They have more talent a lot of the time, and passion for it. It's just those stumbling blocks. They get to 16 and the parents are going, look, you're not going to get a career out of this. Go do something else. And they believe them.
Yeah. Recordo, same question.
I agree with a lot of what Andy just said. Yes, the pressures on the institutions. However, I believe, like, I'm going to use an example, right? The ACE program. I'm a part of the ACE program, which is the Afro-Caribbean Engagement Program, which was founded by Ebony Rainford Brent, because she looked into it and said, you know what, there's not enough being done for Afro-Caribbean kids. So she started the pilot. She then did the groundwork, got it up and running, built a relationship with Cricket Club, Surrey County Cricket Club, sorry. And then it gained more traction. Then she presented it to Sport England. ECB now jumps on the bandwagon. Royal London now jumps on the bandwagon. So there straight away, it didn't go from, right, here's your initiative, get me these numbers. Because I feel like when it's from the institutions, they say, right, get me the numbers. There isn't this thing of like, I want quality. Whereas if you start it from the beginning, because it's a little bit more organic and closer to home, you give it a little bit more unconditional love. You have it has that undivided attention. It has that passion. It has that desire, that thing that Andy mentioned, desire. Because you really want change, you will make it happen. So I think it starts from within our communities. Let's change our internal narratives. Stop telling our children that the institutions are racist and you're not going to make it and you have to work 10 times harder. I listened to this podcast. similar to yourself, it's called impact theory. And myself and Andy, I know that we've developed together spiritually because we've changed our internal narrative. Like, I can't sit here, and I'm going a little bit this way, but I'm going to bring it back to the question, right? I can't sit here and say, Warwickshire, it's your fault why I haven't got it's your fault why I didn't get a longer career. You guys made me unhappy. You guys did this to me, blah, blah, blah. Now, I look at it and I said, you know what? At the time, it must have happened for a reason. Has to. Because I am a better person now I believe I'm a better person now. And I've grown a lot more now than if I had played 5 more years of professional cricket. That the adversity of getting let go, right, at the age of 25 has made me develop more as a human being, 100% more. Now, I've evolved spiritually, I've evolved humanly, and I've evolved psychologically. Now, I listened to this podcast called Impact Theory on YouTube, and the guy that came on there was a guy called the Wall Street Trapper. So he was a young man. He got locked up at a young age for attempted murder, right? Poor, bad childhood, in and out of homes and foster homes because his mom and his father was separated. His mom sold drugs. He then ended up selling drugs. Someone robbed him. He then went to get back his drugs and the money. Ended up shooting the guy. Gets sent in prison at the age of 16. While in prison, he's fighting. Then he gets locked into solitary confinement. He meets this European guy that questions him and says, "Why are you guys playing that game? You guys are playing the wrong game." And because of his emotional state and what he knows, he feels like, you know what, I have to attack this guy because he's attacking who I am. No, then the guy says, "No, don't get me wrong. Listen, why do you guys play that game? You're playing a game that you will never win." And he goes, "What do you mean?" Then the guy shows him, "Look, I'm in prison for robbing $2.8 million, but I paid back $800,000 of that 2.8 million. I have $2 million waiting for me when I come out of prison." And he goes, "Nah, I don't believe you." And then in prison, the paperwork, you can share your paperwork. And he sees the paperwork. So now in prison, he goes, "What? I have never seen $2 million, and I don't think I will ever see $2 million. Now I want to learn how you did that." So now the narrative of him, this person, now begins to change, because now this man is showing him something that he would have never known. And to get there, he has to change his internal narrative. So it's not white people are rich. It's he learned from the European guy, rich people do this. So he learned that success does not have a complexion, nor race, nor social status. If you want to be successful, this is what you must do. So then the moral of that story, which I take out of it now when I use my coaching, is forget your race, forget your social background. You don't have a golden ticket. I don't care who you are, who your dad may be, because it doesn't matter if your dad had played for England, your dad can't score the runs for you. Your dad can't take your wickets for you. Your dad cannot take the coaches for you. Neither can your granddad, neither can your uncle, neither can your auntie, neither can your brother, neither can your sister. You must do it for yourself. So our culture and our environments stop giving our children that self-fulfilling prophecy of you're going to fail because of your race. Work 10 times harder because of your race. Because if you do that, it takes a great individual to not see the other side of it. So as soon as they face adversity from a European person, what do they see? This man don't like me because of my race. But this person could be giving you the best constructive feedback ever. But you won't see it because you see his race. Because of what you have been told. So that, what Andy said, I think is massive. We need to change that. And I think the institutions aren't going to change overnight, because let's face the facts, everything is a little bit tribalistic. The institutions have been created so their tribes can last a bit longer. You know, the conception of our game was not made for the working class person. It wasn't. So it's going to take probably another, what, 2 generations, 3 generations, maybe another 100 years before the things that we want to see start to happen. But I think what can accelerate that process is by we, the people, the majority of people, forcing the change upon the institution. So let's say, for example, we remove the N-word. We stop calling each other brown people, white people, black people, Southeast Asian people, Muslim does this, Sikh person does that, Hindu does that, Christian does that. What if we say, you know what, we're cricketers and we're in this together? Now, a lot of things that are happening is the Southeast Asian people are wanting this to be done for them. The Afro-Caribbean people are wanting to be that done for them. So what if both people came together and said, you know what, equality for all. Equality for all. What we want is that we as a people, we want to be treated evenly, equally. Let us fail based upon our merit, like what we're asking for. And I believe that's what we ask for. So when you're having one dialogue, so ECB has one dialogue with the Southeast Asian community, one dialogue with the with the African community. They can't keep they want this, they want that. Okay, now we're gonna have to bloody meet in the middle. But the European people still want this. The coaches and the institutions still want this. But what if you just cut that out? Both people come to these people and say, listen, this is what we want. Stop calling us British-born Pakistani English cricketer. What? British-born Pakistani cricketer. What? Where did the Pakistani come in there? Why this cricketer isn't just a British cricketer? You don't know that they assimilate with Pakistani ethnicity. You don't know that. They may not care about it. They may have Pakistani parent, but like Andrew, he could be a Christian. So when you say Pakistani, the socialization for a lot of people in English, oh, he's a Muslim. Oh, bloody hell. So the labeling thing comes everywhere.
I need to stop using Scottish Pakistani now after that. After that, I've been using that, most of my life to kind of, I was always comfortable with saying it because I feel like that was who I am. Like, I'm Scottish, but I'm very much in touch with my culture and Pakistani. And I thought the easiest thing to do is say Scottish Pakistani, but you just hit the nail on the head. Why are we not just all cricketers? We're cricketers. Doesn't matter what background you come from. We're all cricketers, and we're all one family, and we're all here, and we should embrace it. I think that there needs to be some education. There needs to be more understanding from the institution about these different people. But I don't think we need to change, like you've said, to accommodate all these different people in different ways. We just need to all come together as cricketers and nothing else. So I really like that. I really, really like that. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, man. I'm glad. I'm glad I put this together. Andrew, for instance, I've not spoken to him properly for many, many years. He's much younger than me as well, as you can probably tell. So when he was still in Glasgow, he was just a little nipper, and I was in my late teens already. So to see you speaking as a mature adult now, all these years later, has been inspiring to listen to. You've talked about some really important subjects. Recordo, I like your style of speaking. I like the way you process things, but I like the way you kind of just say it. You don't leave an elephant in the room, which I think a lot of people do. I like that. And I just want to say thank you to you. I hope whoever gets the chance to listen to this, I think there's a lot of learning in this from listening to both of you. And yeah, if there's anything you want to add at the end, feel free. But from my point of view, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think thank you very much, Shakes. You know, that's very kind words. You know, I appreciate that. I think that the sort of last thing I was just thinking about there when Ricardo was speaking is I think we are moving into territory as well in danger. Pretty much what he was speaking about is just like it becoming identity politics and it becoming a thing of the same way politicians use it to, you know, leverage power and to leverage votes, is that it starts happening within sport. I think it's already kind of starting to happen, but that, you know, institutions start to see that they can gain leverage or support, or individuals start to see that they can gain support with groups of people by promising them X, Y, and Z, you know, and I think it's just like we just got to caution against, and like we've just said, there is the main thing is that it's cricket, you know, it's the merit of cricket. How are you doing in cricket? And we start improving opportunities for kids who really want to do well in the space to improve, and adults as well, and to have an opportunity to thrive. And we don't start using it as we tend to do as humans to start leveraging, you know, to get positions of power, or to start, you know, papering over cracks, which we've seen happen at Yorkshire. That's just all I'd add, probably.
Wise words, and I agree. It shouldn't turn into that. I don't want to see 20 British South Asian or people from African background just get 20 posts when they don't even merit getting those 20 posts. That's not the answer here. That's just going to cause more shit out the back end of it. You know, we're going to be 20, 30 years down the line, and then European people, British people are going to be saying, this has become unfair. That's not what we're seeking. You know, we want an inclusive quality, and we want a fair chance. Everybody, and this includes people from a public schooling background compared to a private schooling background. The stats and the research showed that there's a big gap between them people becoming professional cricketers as well. So there's bias going on there as well. We just want a fair system. I hope we will get there. Might take some time, but I think people like yourselves are really important to help that cause, because you've lived the experience and you can help improve it as we move forward. Thank you, chaps. Stay on for 2 seconds and I'll catch you, but I appreciate you coming on.
Cheers, Cass.